Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 4 stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. The Karma Stories podcast is published to all major podcasting platforms, and you can also read along on YouTube under our @Karma Stories podcast handle. If you have a story you'd like to submit to the podcast, you can do so by email at karmastoriespod@gmail.com. Don't forget to check out my new channel on YouTube, Rob's Real Stories, where we just released our 3rd video profiling 5 eccentric inventors. Again, that's Rob's Real Stories, link in the description and the comments down below. Alright, on to today's stories, let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Mysterious Title 171. Lazy class partner didn't help at all for our term project, even while I was in the ER. At the end of the semester, he acted as if he was entitled to get an A like I did. This happened a few semesters ago where I was taking a course in urban design. Everyone was grouped in 3s, but one of my group members wanted to join another group with their friend, so I ended up with one other person. Not sure why the professor thought this was okay, but I wasn't too worried because I was fairly confident in my ability to do the work. The course incorporated previous studio courses to tie together in a massive topic of urban planning, which included architectural design, environmental sustainability, urban infrastructure, and historic preservation. I tried to brainstorm with my partner on which direction we should go. My idea was focused on residentials, as housing would address a huge demand here in New York City. However, my partner seemed content on making the project about industrial buildings, so I focused there. We brainstormed on different ideas, but I got the impression that he just wanted me to take the lead, as he mostly agreed while not giving much input. Weeks went by, and I constantly updated my partner on my progress via WhatsApp, while rarely getting any update or feedback from him. It annoyed me a bit, but I was still confident in my work, which was enough to get us through the next checkpoint during our next presentation. At some point during the semester, I got a really terrible kidney stone. It wasn't from junk food or a poor diet. In fact, it was from eating too much black beans and chickpeas. A side note, I asked ChatGPT to give me a list of food which I used to come up with a meal plan that meets my macro needs. I did feel way better with my new diet, but it eventually led to me having my worst kidney stone of my life that put me in the ER. I was on all kinds of pain meds and had to stay there for several nights, but it didn't end there. The stone was so big that it got stuck. I needed surgery to put in a stent. Don't look up how they put it in, it still gives me nightmares. I had to wait several more weeks and endure painful urination daily and having yet another surgery to remove the stent before finally recovering. Throughout this whole time, I managed to put in some work into my project. I was surprised to learn that my partner did absolutely nothing and waited for me to continue my work. Like, what the actual F? To make it worse, I learned that he tried to present my work as his own. How can people be like that? I emailed the professor about my situation. I explained how I've done all the work so far and sent him screenshots of the chat as well as my project file, which includes all the history logs. The professor reminded me that during the final submission, everyone had to put their initials on the slides of the work that they worked on. Okay, got it. Luckily, I was recovered and ready to present my work. I left out the initials as it wasn't required for presentation, only for the final submission. I felt the need to see what he'd do. I even tried to cut him some slack and gave him some talking points on the parts I'd allow him to claim as his own, even though it was fully my work. He didn't. He kept cutting me off during presentation to talk about my project as if he had anything to do with it. He mostly repeated the same information that I mentioned while not bringing anything of value to point out. The final presentation had several judges who were comprised of local professionals in high-level positions within the industry. The conversation was always directed at me, so I had a good feeling that everyone understood that I did most of the work, as I knew all of the intimate knowledge of the parts. Then came the last day to submit our work. The final slides included my initials on every single page. Apparently, my partner missed that part about the initials and also submitted an older version of my work. A few weeks go by and I hit him up asking what he got. I was surprised to learn that he actually passed with a C+. He was surprised to hear that I received an A- and promptly said that he'll have a talk with the professor on why he received such a low grade. Honestly, why are there people like this? Anyway, not sure if it's malicious compliance, but I did do everything as instructed and ended up having one heck of a semester. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Mr. Spiffenheimer. It says, I hate how the professors say that they'll take individual effort into account with the grade and then don't really follow through. At least he got a C+ instead of an A-, but that's still roughly 80 points more than he should have gotten if he didn't do any work. Or, being generous, 30 points for his brainstorming and presentation participation. Either way, an F. Alright, does anybody else feel like the professor just passed this guy because the professor didn't want to put up with them for another semester? Like, hey, if I fail you, I have to see you again, and that's not good for me. So here's your barely passing grade, now get out of my room. This story comes to us from Alchemist Gamer, the 3-cut minimum. I have always hated mowing the lawn. At the same time, I don't want to be that neighbor, so I do my best to stay on top of the lawn. However, while I started out strong this summer, I had a series of medical issues that left me in a state that mowing was a bit too much than I could handle. Add in a few other excuses on the few remaining times I could mow, the lawn was making me look like I was the neighbor I didn't want to be. I decided I'd pay someone to mow for a change and then pick it back up once it was back under control. My first mistake was when the company I contacted had advertised a one-time cut, but when calling to schedule service, notified me they have a 3-cut minimum. I should have backed out then. I didn't. The first mower showed up and canceled the mowing, claiming my lawn was 100% over 23 inches, and as such, for excessive height, and proceeded to list that they'd charge me a 500% markup for the service. The photos taken were of the few higher points in the lawn, all my front yard, with a tape measure you couldn't read the numbers off of. I was annoyed to say the least, and I tried to originally cancel here, but hit with the whole contract bit. So I told them I'd mow it, and I'd just use them to end the season and take it easy. I actually only mowed the front lawn, and even then, not the whole lawn. Miraculously, 2 weeks later, the mower that showed up did the whole lawn, and somehow didn't see the backyard that I left untouched was a problem. The next mowing day came and went and no one showed, so I reported it and canceled the mowing through the app. Despite canceling, someone showed up the following day. I'm annoyed and I want out, so I go into the app and try to cancel my service again. It looks like the service was canceled and I saved screenshots. Then today, I get a message saying my mower is on the way. Here's the thing, we have had a drought for the last month or so, it's the end of the season, and my lawn hasn't grown even a half inch in the last 2 weeks. I am beyond furious at this point. I wait until the guy shows up, I talk to him, he's a great guy. He's a contractor for this booking company, which is what I thought was the case. He tells me he gets this all the time. He lets me know he's going to send a message to the company. I felt bad his time got wasted, but there wasn't much I could do about that. An hour later, I get a message showing I'm rescheduled for tomorrow. I'm done. So I call them up, and after speaking with one agent, I get to the escalation team. He tells me my service is canceled, but I still have one mowing as per the contract. We go back and forth for a bit and he won't budge. I ask him if he would schedule snow removal in the middle of summer, so why should I schedule mowing when it isn't needed? Nothing. Fine, schedule me for June in 2047. June when, sir? June 4th, 2047. I'm sure I'll need my lawn mowed then. We can't schedule that far in advance. He's insistent it has to be this or next year, but I keep pushing. And I remind him that I agreed to a 3-cut minimum, And nowhere in any of the conversations did the company specify a restriction on when. So, I wanted to schedule it on June 4th, 2047, and he needed to make that happen. One moment, sir, while I talk to support. I wait for another few minutes, and then he comes back. Your service is fully cancelled, no one is coming out. I think OP missed a bit of an opportunity. They could have talked to that second person who came out, the one who did everything without complaining, and gotten their number and hired them directly in the future. None of this going through a service that sends out a contractor. That's just a cash grab for a middleman, and you probably get a better deal going directly through the person who's actually cutting your lawn anyway. This story comes to us from Floating a Waste. Sprained ankle, boss wanted a doctor's note to pay 1 day of sick time, now he's paying a week. I twisted and sprained my ankle Monday morning, packing up our camp from Labor Day weekend. Having done this a few times in the past, I didn't want to bother to have it checked out. Who wants to pay $1,000 for urgent care to tell you to rest and ice it? Yay, America! So I went to work Tuesday. I got morning stuff done and explained the situation to my boss. Told him I'd need to take the day because it was swollen and painful, and I needed to rest and be off of it in order for it to heal. He gets in a tizzy because God forbid anyone needs to miss work for anything at all ever, and snaps at me for not planning to go to the doctor. Wednesday, I go into work, still limping and still wearing improper footwear. I can only fit the injured foot into a crock without unbearable pain. The first thing the boss says is, "Don't you think you should get that checked out? I don't understand why you don't want to just pay for it." I explain again that I've had this injury in the past. It's definitely not broken, and honestly not even as swollen as it has been when I've done it before. I want to be at work to keep up on things and make everyone's job less difficult. I would just need to take it easy for a couple days, which isn't a problem considering I can do 90% of the job from my desk. And the 10% slack is beyond easy for everyone to pick up, especially when not being there makes them pick up 100% of it. This gets met with more attitude, so I ask if I'll be getting paid sick time for the day I missed yesterday. He says no, not without a doctor's note. You can visibly see the injury clear as day, and I'm trying here, so WTF. I'm fed up by this point, so a little later on I say, okay, and leave to go to the doctor's for the note he wants so badly, knowing full well what they'll say to treat it and that I'll need to be off of it for 3 to 5 days. After an x-ray and getting the, "Yep, it's sprained, keep doing what you've been doing," I let them know my boss asked for a note for missing a day of work to rest it. Doc asks if I want to be at work to do what I can to stay off of it as best as possible. I said that's what I've been trying to do, so I'm fine with that. I do have sick time if it would be more beneficial to be off of it for a couple days. She comes back with a note that I may return to work on 9/9, which would be Monday. I took a picture and shot it over to Boss Man, just the photo. He replies, "What's wrong with the ankle?" Which I met with no response considering none is needed. He got his note. I just wanted a day of sick time, 8 hours. Now he's paying me 4 days, 32 hours. He can't refuse a second of it. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Bridge Over River RMB. It says, American healthcare needs to be changed. Everyone knows it, and it's not happening. One reason is universal healthcare would allow so many small businesses to start. I know so many people that want to start a business, but can't because they'll lose healthcare. OOP, don't you know you're supposed to schedule out your injuries in advance so that you don't inconvenience your boss and their finely tuned schedule? I sincerely hope that while you're taking your mandatory couch time and relaxing as per the doctor's orders, that you completely turn off your phone and don't accept a single call or message from anybody at work. This story comes to us from Tom Rummett's Cowled. Dealing with a nosy, toxic neighbor using a brother-in-law and a decommissioned hearse. This was way back in 2012, but it still feels so darn good to think about. We had just moved into our new house in a small and nice, but not posh neighborhood. Our neighbor Betty was aggravated from the very beginning. She had a perfect view of the neighborhood playground, as did we, but she really hated the fact that kids would enjoy themselves on said playground. In the first 2 months of us being there, she called the cops on the kids playing 3 times. Needless to say, the officers were not very content with her either, but every time she would say something about drugs, violence, etc., basically forcing the police to take action. I finally confronted her and told her that the kids had every right to play there, and that she should get her crap together or move out to the country. She then went on a toddler's tirade and said that she would hire a private investigator to keep an eye on things, as she had other more important things to do anyway. Keep in mind that Betty was a senior citizen, so of course my conscience would not allow me to have her pay for such an inconvenience. Luckily for her, my brother-in-law was just out of a job and needed something to pay the bills. And as I had set out to make my neighbor as happy as possible, I thought I could get 2 birds with 1 stone. So I rang him up, and within 2 days, we had set the new company up, Tommy's PI office. My brother-in-law is a bit scruffy looking, wearing mostly overalls and Crocs, but I figured he would be perfect for the job, as no one would suspect him of being a PI. I then went along and got him a company car, as he might have to pursue the 10-year-olds playing on the swings and dealing in their spare time. Luckily, we found this magnificent beast, an old Ford Hearse, which would be perfect for a good long stakeout. Fortunately for me, I got a family discount, so I didn't have to put down a lot in wages, and the hearse was just over $1,000. So we placed Tommy and his new company hearse in front of Betty's house on the public road, so she would no longer have to worry about keeping an eye on the small criminals across the street. Within 2 weeks, she finally got enough of people checking in on her and politely asked Tommy if he would give up his stakeout. We didn't get any more complaints after that. Alright, I've got to mention that lower down in the comments, in response to somebody else on a comment that was completely unrelated, OP mentioned that they named the hearse Betty's Destiny. That is perfect. They also mentioned that after this was all over, they managed to sell the hearse with a profit. So no complaints there. So in the end on this one, Betty got her PI, Tommy got a job, and OP didn't have to worry anymore, and the police didn't have to respond to Betty's calls. So everybody won. If you enjoy daily Reddit stories, I encourage you to follow and add us to your favorites on whichever podcasting platform you enjoy the most. And if you're watching and listening on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really helps us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.